Ukraine. We're going to have a panel. You understand by now why we call it strategic and system being strategic. Here is the name of this panel discussion: Ukraine in the global chip race, building a semiconductor future. Eugene Korotký, academic director in KSE, senior DSP, FPGA engineer. Just one moment. Those networking are invited to fill in the front rows. Alexander Rudanov, senior director of advanced R&D, Silvaco Incorporated. Alexei Dorohan, CEO of Better Regulation Delivery Office, BRDO. Yegor Perelygin, Deputy Minister, Minister of Economy, Environment and Agriculture. Antolan Melin, moderator, Executive Director and co-founder of think tank Ukrainian Institute for the Future. And Vladislav Shimov, Managing Director, Capgemini Engineering. Thank you for staying with us. After Eugene's presentation, we have the groundwork for this new session. We have a respectable audience, very solid, and we have 45 minutes in total. And we can discuss it, and we're going to have several blocks. Let me discuss them for you now. The first is geopolitics and global trends. This is a follow-up to Eugene's presentation. Then integration of Ukraine into the EU and chip of the EU and Ukraine. Ukraine chooses this priority and conditions for the strategy implementation without change of policy. We cannot do that. HR strategy, and we have to develop the cadre, as we said. The first block, according to my notes, is geopolitics. And Yegor, Alexander, Eugene, and Vladislav are invited to join. You represent the government, but also you're a member of Ukrainian American board with their investment strategy and project development for critical materials. This having directly to do with the semiconductor industry. So here's my first question: what are the principal trends guiding the development? Secondly, the change of mapping for global manufacturing and rare earth metals. So you can start with the third one. Yegor, thank you very much. Let me be brief here. In my opinion, and it is shared by my team, well, there is a very small number of countries geographically concentrating manufacturing of critical minerals, and most importantly, rare metals like helium, germanium, gadolinium, zirconium, tantal. These China, first of all, with the price inversion. This means that your cost is lower than the market price. Tariff policy and export control policy to support where it is needed, where it is possible to influence the market and effectively scale it up to kill any kind of competition even before it arises. This is the first block. And you see, we have all to appreciate that in the majority of cases, those rare elements are byproducts. And if you do not develop the principal industry, nickel, titanium, lithium, you cannot get those products. If you have a developed one with the chloride process synthesis, then you can get hafnium, zirconium, niobium, and not to mention polycrystallic and monocrystallic germanium. This is expensive production, but we can have an added value there. Absolutely. Geopolitical and economic situation is such that only big countries as China can dominate, possibly. So in order to somehow integrate into those processes, we have to stimulate the industrial parks or clusters or production, and secondly, to stimulate it in such a way that this is not a raw material facility, but most effective extraction of all the byproducts. In that case, your economy becomes agile. But if we continue with the raw material type of economy, we can gain nothing. So the most important strategic goals of the fund is to bring a market maker for Ukraine, not just to invest equity capital, but also to act as facilitator of the big contracts with formula basis, with advance payments, 3 to 5 year contracts, and so forth, with the potential investment. Well, we are now shaping the first pipeline, and it's not just talks yet, can call it that, but because we have to appoint a financial advisor, and elect the administrator, and introduce the protocols. By December, we will have that done and start investing in January. Eugene, Alexander, Vladislav, you have the vision of expertise, and who is ready? Would like to be the first. Geopolitics, role of Ukraine, and that Alexander is always ready, as far as I'm concerned. Or would you let your colleagues speak before you? I can discuss general trends in our geopolitical reality. We have the AI race, and this AI race creates demand for AI chips. Willingly or unwillingly, we have to create this crazy race and headhunting. Well, this is true for Ukraine, but also all the world, because this headhunting is for talents. This is not the only topic, but the most important one. There are also sensors. There is autonomy, interactive things. Consumers would like to buy machines and semiconductors as an essential part of them, and energy efficiency. Our commitment of publicly owned companies to cut the costs, and this is also true for semiconductors, among other things. This is in store. This is inevitable. So,
you again? You're going to miss? Okay, literally speaking, just a couple of words. I'm an expert in development. Microchips, microcircuits. I'm not an expert in technological processes. I can say that a lot of discussion dedicated to technological processes. Out of what I understand, in my very minimum and understanding technological, I can say that for the development of technology and production in our country, we need a considerable support on the part of the government, of the state. If you have a look at the company where the production was developing, or the country where they developed such industry, Japan, Taiwan, and China, they use the maximum resources. They have to help and create the conditions for development of microelectronic business. If we have this, we'll have development in the rare metals, etc., and production of those. Speaking about the trends and development of the industry, first of all, I have to say that we have let's say, operational law, but it actually was transformed a bit. We are going to talk about that later. Industry is demonstrating such an effect that Queen raised. You remember, Lisa, in the Wonderland, for the players in the market to remain there. Each year they have to run with a bigger speed. So this is the terminating trend. I would like to talk about such trends for transformation, the continuation of scaling. Artificial intellect actually dictates this necessity. As really just by small stamping or increasing the number of transistors, they won't resolve the problem. Owing to the new technologies like Evolink, they scale up their biggest technologies into big stacks, and under the demands of the dynamical developing AI, this can be done owing to such monsters, which using the cluster mode, they can combine unite in big clusters. Chiplet is the second one. This is very expensive production of chips with the super thin nanometers. They use the chiplets where they can combine at one crystal the thinnest part, the digital for HPC, for the computer memory. Other parts can be produced using the simpler technologies, using this kind of 3D combination technology. They can produce the chiplets, which are easier to test, and they are cheaper. You were talking about their production. Third trend, the jittery structures. Silicon is everything, is most important. And trillions were invested in the development. But unfortunately, silicon is not really natural for optical tasks or high voltage tasks or high frequency cases. So when heterogeneous structures, actually what determines the parallel course of development. I can say that the Moore law was transformed into quite a new form from the scale into economic effect. Anyway, you get every 2 years better functionality, new capabilities. But now we are talking about combining of different technologies. Superb, thank you. Second question, integration in Ukraine and participation of Ukraine in this situation. Alexei Dorogan and Alexander Grudano, you know that you participated a lot in European negotiations. So 2 questions. What possibilities of participation in what we can offer to EU? What are the prospects of European market for semiconductors? Whether they take in consideration the participation in Ukraine. We'll start with Alexander, who actually participated in those 2 rounds of talks. Alexei, I'll start from just opposition. Chips or semiconductors, expensive factories, billions upon billions, trillions upon trillions. This is something which we are talking about the place of Ukraine, taking into consideration those big numbers or figures. And big war is waged in Ukraine today, so we cannot talk about trillions upon trillions of dollars. So why we are here? The answer is very simple. It's not necessary for us to build factories for trillions upon trillions of dollars in order to achieve our goals, in order for the Ukrainian economy to become part of the added value chain in this sphere. not necessarily most expensive part of this chain, but anyway, we have big experience in defense tech. And those technologies are not too expensive, which we need, I mean. In addition of the objectives we can achieve, Ukrainian speaking engineers, they can discuss between themselves what kind of technology they are going to use. We can help to achieve their objective to some other people. This EU, for example, in EU, they have different policies which are aimed, and we heard from Evgeny about that, and they aimed at sovereignty, economic, rare metal, semiconductors, etc., etc. To them, Ukraine is the future member state of EU, a more comfortable partner than many other countries which are located far away, I would put it this way. There is a EU program which can open for Ukraine, where we can get additional financing for Ukrainian industry producing semiconductors. To do that, we have to do our homework. Part of homework we already saw, to take care of audit of the available industry, to understand what we would like to achieve, to offer our agenda, our strategy, our vision, what kind of industry we are going to build. And number two, to prepare in legal terms so that all those programs can be legally implemented in Ukraine. And again, in addition to strategy, we also developed the draft law, or general draft law, which has to help us to open those doors, behind which are the capabilities of European Union. I know that a lot of countries would like to help Ukraine. In this sphere, we can find the equipment for universities, the free of charge equipment, some kind of partnerships, some kind of joint initiative. And this is the same sphere which is no worse than digitalization, which we were talking about today, where Ukraine, together with other countries, can have some kind of partnership like we have in Win Summit today. Thank you very much. Alexander, can you continue? Thank you. I was honored to be involved in the Euro integration cluster related to semiconductors. May I remind you a bit, the CHIPS Act, the European CHIPS Act, it deals with the three fundamental pillars. Chip joint undertaking, well, this is R&D and directions. There are a lot of interesting projects financed by EU. Any country can be involved, from IC design to new materials, 3D packaging, whatever you can imagine. Pillar number two, increasing the production capacity in Europe. Factories are kind of clean rooms which are necessary for production. Cluster number three, monitoring and crisis response in supply chain of Europe. There is an official pillar number four, human capital. This is the most painful issue in Europe. Europe has enough factories, different institutions, R&D, but unfortunately they lack the human capital. 70% of the graduates, according to official statistical data in Europe, they deal with the services and the humanitarians, so to say, human sciences experts. Ukraine has a window of opportunities. CHIPS is being reconsidered now. They took a pause. Not everything goes like we wish that to go. 30% the global market till the year 2030. They have to specify that. Maybe we can have 11 to 15, which is not enough. They reconsider the budget, etc., etc. As you know, there is a big bureaucracy, red tape in Europe. The issues related to the cost of land. Well, I understand that Ukraine has an edge in Europe in that. Yes, we can resolve that. Actually, what factory is all about? There's a certain system which requires access to electric power, huge electric power amount, a lot of specially purified water, air, seismic stability, and nice logistics. Can put the name Ukraine under all of that. Yes, we have to resolve this issue, create this cluster, maybe more than one cluster, gradually, I believe with the reconsideration and this chips sect, maybe because of the war, we are lagging behind this program, but chipset it means also technical, technological, institutional, and legislative integration. So we have to bring ever closer to the European Union standards and also our laws. We are working on that. We have now unique window opportunities. We have to further develop our R&D, and we have to exert a lot of effort not to lose our human capital. Okay, last question. I have a question to you. Why Ukraine selects, from point of view its own strategies, the project which we developed, and a draft law which your colleagues managed to write? We hope that by the end of the year they will do something about that. Why foundry you select as the main thing? We are talking about contractual production foundry of the clean room. We are talking about creation in Ukraine at least 2 clean rooms, which is rather expensive effort. And the second question, what Ukraine can offer? You said that you have the seismic stable platform. We still have water supply, we have enough air and people, and we have to do something about that. And another, we have the strategy. We have to understand what we are going to come across. We understand the war is wasted, so on. Very good question. To answer your question, historically speaking, we can have a different attitude to the Ukraine under Soviet Union with this kind of politics, but we are not ashamed for our science and technology. So at times up to 40% of electronics and microelectronics was actually produced by Ukraine. Maybe the biggest concentration of production sites and technologies. We have legacy now. European Union, we have 27 active members. Out of those 27 member states, we would like to assess that EU. Only 6 countries have factories because once they were involved in the appearance or emergence of this industry, generally speaking. Some other countries have clean rooms, and the rest, more than half of the countries, other countries, try to use correct language. They fail to give a big contribution to development. Why we cannot actually restore our legacy and become the local player and become part of the European supply chain? But the means of implementation could be different. How we can actually build the factory, not have technology, not have money. So what is the logic behind this strategy? Very briefly answering the question, strategy, this is a very big notion. A factory is a big capex. Means without partners we cannot build a factory. It's very difficult, almost impossible. We can see by the chipset results. Germany stops the implementation of their projects, but if we combine our edges, our advantages with investment opportunities of our partners, this is partially possible. We can talk about 2 years for the construction, 3rd year the pilot operation, 4th the full-scale production. In this project, payment period is rather long. nobody almost builds any big factory creating some kind of new technology. You can license technology. For that purpose, we pure play foundry. We can select from Germany, Israel, and other factories. We can license the technology to buy the equipment and adapt all this for our needs. In our case, most interesting would be integration of our production capacities with our, let's say, military industrial complex, drones, let's say, electronic warfare, etc. May I remind you, each year Ukraine imports up to 40 million different chips. So first of all, we have to ensure to take care of our own needs, and then to think about exporting. We can follow the gradual increase of the volume of production as a, let's say, additional alternative, which is separate in our strategy, are clean rooms. They are very small factories with the average production capacity from 1,000 to 1,500 wafers, let's say, or microchips. We have to take about high voltage, high frequency, optics based on silicon, and some specific tasks. How expensive is a clean room? In big factories, pure play, starting from 1 billion, clean rooms from dozens of million capex. So we can follow this path. And in Ukraine, we select foundry, but also we plan to open the clean rooms as well. We are going to select some kind of hybrid option, because I believe the realities are such that it requires a lot of investments. And while we have an active phase of war, hardly we can expect that serious partners will give us some money for the construction or building of factories, but we can start to create the clean rooms. Now there is a very popular topic when clean rooms are created under the surface of the earth, deeply under the surface. We have to provide electric power generation, air purification. We're talking about the factories, but clean rooms can be autonomous in this respect. I have another question to our colleagues. You know, we open engineering direction. We talking the masters, and you plan to train the bachelors. Well, I understand that we are talking about big money. If there's any chance to attract big money, first of all, I would like to comment on this issue, factory or clean room. I'm very skeptical, in fact, if you're talking about the creation of big hub in Ukraine, because it's very difficult to compete, in Ukraine with the world. In Samsung, they have the problems with competition. Germany has some problems with creation of the fabs. I believe for Ukraine it would be even more difficult to do. It's not, we are not talking about the experts, but also operational activity in order to ensure the plan, the mode of the production, reliability, and to ensure some kind of price, to have something efficient, effective, and not to have some be on profitable side. If you're talking about clean rooms, it's a different story for the reasons which Alexander mentioned. It's cheaper, it can be hidden under the surface. In our case, program, we implement that in partnership with the Technological Political Institute of Zurich. We actually visited them for them to share with us their experience, and the groups in university take care of research. They're leaders of the research groups there. I mean, their masters, the graduate assistants. Also, in their firm, they create prototypes. They create some of the models, and they immediately test them. Samples, and they test them in universities. Then they take care of the patents to ensure the profit for the university for the patents used. This is a contractual payment. which the students pay for their education. This is not the source of the income. This source of income or profit are patents. Coming back to the KSE project, we focus our attention on development, not on the technology, not on the production, but development. We teach our students how to practically produce chips, radio frequency ones, etc., and we orientate ourselves on the Fabus model on the manufacturing microchips or microcircuits in Europe, in Taiwan. We take care of the student projects from IHP factory in Germany. Speaking about the creation of clean room in KSE, I'm all for that. But objectively speaking, we have to, it's a long story, only can do that, I mean. We still have 10 minutes, we have to accelerate a bit. We have a lot of questions. Most important, the conditions for implementation strategy. Sub-question, what is critically necessary to create for success? Infrastructure, legislation, who has to be the key partner? What mechanism of investment are efficient for the launching of production? You said that dozens million a clean room and more than a billion is a full-fledged factory. And what about the critical materials for the semiconductors for Ukraine and the world over? We can start from this third question. You have more expertise in that. First of all, I would like to say clusters and only cluster development, number one. Only cluster development will provide us the answer. Why? Look at China or some successful countries which built that. Cluster development was the answer, response to that. If all your let's say suppliers, your logistics, when you increase the cost of logistics and the reduce marginality of business, etc., this is important. Cluster development makes it possible for the state to form a very clear point-to-point policy to stimulate using some kind of tool, let's say, or instrument, policy making, something like the legislative instrument. Tools. As for the, let's say, deployment of some technological solution for the development of this business, in my opinion, there is such a big convergence theory. Those countries which built immediately and started to build something from scratch, from zero, and they said that they would immediately be able to build Mercedes. As a rule, they failed to achieve their goal. Such countries like the Korea, we started with the system licensing and as assembly, and they actually managed to build over these years for the operational functionality, based on the license, assembly of the big node or smaller node, etc., etc. That's number two. So we had focused our attention on the solutions or decisions where we can answer the question what we would like to build ourselves for our own needs, for our market, and where we can be most efficient or effective. Number three, speaking about critical minerals, this is my profile, where I specialize. What I can see, to attract money for the projects, modular projects, first of all, for the reprocessing, okay, let's put it this way, 70% of all approaches of the country, metallurgical, in the mining, 70%. This is a Klondike. This is an opportunity to get everything, starting from the scandium and all the way to the gallium. Another question, if I would like to have the lithium or titanium, I have to have a license, but we are talking about those tails, I mean the waste. There is an owner. What is the procedure in place? We are working with the representatives of the Verkhovna Rada Parliament of Ukraine, different experts on the issue to adopt a profile law. So we have to regulate everything. We believe that you need a normal, a single law on the mining and extraction sphere, if you're talking about the voice. And number two, if you're talking about today's reality, we have to take care of an additional, let's say, exploration. You have to get especially permission to do that. Not to say that you have to go through 10 different circles of hell, This is not something I would recommend to do. You have different approach. You don't have to take care of the mine or the open query or something like that. But we can see that reanimation, the profile direction, the titanium magnesium cycle, or let's say other ray metal, like key directions, industrial directions. We call them the main products or the core products. They enable us, based on those, to master technology of extraction of all other elements. I would put it this way: without gadolinium, without neon, without tantalum, you cannot build a comprehensive. Well, you can always buy this somewhere, but if you're talking about integration of the chain, you cannot actually create the integrated chain. But was the case in neon when they were started export of neon to Taiwan or to the Korea, dropped to the zero level. So we can see today, if you stimulate the creation of the classical clusters of critical minerals, then we can actually use those for using all those additional extractions in order to balance the economy of the project and also to ESCO, as the big chain. But you have to say that it means billion investment to do that during the war. This is the answer with this asterisk to your question. We have another last block of questions. I would like to ask we are talking about strategic in the industry where even the most critical materials, but we need people who can actually process those. So my question is where we can take dozens of thousands of highly qualified, skilled experts, and Alexander answered that already, how we can train the personnel, short-term and long-term solutions, how we can compete with the global companies in this sphere, who will be the first to answer this question. Okay, maybe briefly a comment. Dozens of thousands, this is an ambitious objective. I don't think we need dozens of thousands of engineers. Where we are going to take those? Actually, we can take our own approach to train those, or can maybe create some conditions to invite somebody from European countries. Why not, after the war is over, to create necessary conditions, we can actually send our experts to Europe for skills upgrading, if you're talking about some kind of the equipment which is going to be used in the clean rooms and to use it, for example, in the same fab. KSE made the first step. We developed master program for the analog and digital microchips, involvement in necessary experts from the academy and the developers of microchips, microcircuits with the experience of 20 to 20 years, who either use the ETH courses in Switzerland, or they say we can see that we can create or develop or design a better even course. We show that to the Swiss experts and say, this is very cool, maybe you can actually come to us and share your experience. So our case experience demonstrates that we can develop the education towards the development of micro-circuit production in Ukraine. And this can be spent to other sectors. It so has spent the time a representative of big organization of 420,000 all over the world and doing a lot of experts in several countries, United States, India, Europe. We developed this in a direction also in Ukraine. Hunting for the talents is a key direction globally. Like for the experts in semiconductors, this stimulates the creation or taking care of the deal. And some countries do not have the production of chips, but they are believed to be the chip centers the world over because they have this humblest development of chips, and accordingly they play a very important role. Unlike USSR and Soviet Union, where the microelectronic expert was involved in the defense sphere, so to say, now we do not have such situation, and accordingly we have to create the conditions where the people in Ukraine had the opportunity to have a high salary, competitive salary, working for the Ukrainian economy in the defense sphere, etc., etc. But we have to create all the necessary conditions, and education plays a key role here. But in addition to that, the first thing which have to take care of, the majority of people understand.
If I have become developing, they got their work of cash, and I have to learn for how many years, and cash, sorry, and we have to study semiconductors, and people should then practice. There are different ways to achieve that. R&D and that is sponsored by the sponsors, by the donors, sorry, and that helps engage onboard more people in a quicker manner than any other way. So we have to think of something similar. So we have discussed, let me summarize, the critical materials and semiconductors, depending on the Ukrainian-American, US and Ukrainian fund. There are some procedural issues remaining. By the end of the year, I expect to see a strategy and big investments. Without them, we cannot rearrange all the cycle for manufacturing critical materials so necessary for the semiconductors. And by the end of the year, we expect the draft law, to be reviewed and finalized by the Parliament. Without it, it is very difficult for us to arrange for our own industry. Ukraine has the potential. We are discussing that, debating the best way to proceed. There are two options presenting themselves, but without people, we cannot do anything. Thank you, KSE. We're changing Ukraine and creating a new industry. We have a long road before us, but the end state is clear. Thank you for the emotions. Thank you for your attendance.